afternoon's seminar. The topic of this seminar is DGCS, Management, Efficiency and Technology and E-Government in Bangladesh. It is a pleasure to introduce the moderator of this seminar this afternoon, and Mr. Mohammad Kaikwad. So, sir, please would you do the honors and please carry on the session. Thank you.
Today we have got two distinguished speakers from the United States and Australia and a panelist. And our chief guest is Dr. Akbar Ali Khan. He is yet to be present. I think he may be on the road. I would like to request special guest Mr. Abu Muhammad Muniruzzaman Khan, Rector BPATC, to take his seat in the dais, along with our speakers, Dr. Abdul Momen of Flemington State College, Massachusetts, and Mr. Ahmed Imran, Australian National University. We have also two other guests, one representative from UNDP. He is here, please take a seat, and Professor Nazmul Hassan Kalimullah of Dhaka University. So thank you very much for coming to this seminar. Our topic is in e-government orientation. Both the speakers will be giving their lecture on it. I would like to request, before saying that, I must say that speakers will take 25 minutes each, and followed by panel discussion, who is yet to arrive, and then we will have a special guest and chief guest, and then a 40-minute question and answer session. And I think one of the speakers would like to question our session just after his speech, so we can allocate 10 minutes just after this speech. So I'd like to request Dr. Abdul Momen to present his topic.
My topic of the day is administrative structure for good governance and accelerated growth in Bangladesh. I have been discussing this issue for years, and I thought nowadays, since there is a lot of discussion about reform, and this is an area where we can focus our attention. And if we do, then it will help both the economic growth as well as prosperity of this nation. So that's why I picked up this topic, administrative structure for good governance and accelerated growth in Bangladesh. Before I start, I would like to, I'm a teacher, and if anybody is a teacher here, a school teacher, college teacher, or any teacher, I would like them to stand up and let us applaud them, because you are the torchbearers to teach the new generations. Anyone is a teacher, can I see them stand up? And let us give applause to them. Is there anyone who is a journalist or a reporter? I would like them to stand up, because they are one of the most important elements of good governance. Thank you. Thank you. Now let me give you a roadmap to my presentation. Initially, I would like to say that currently in US, there is a bill which has passed recently, US Bill 2007, and that relates to the CIDR, the US government wants to help people who have been affected due to this calamity. And it was overwhelmingly passed in the Congress. Following that, we have been asking, and I would need the help of all other, my South American NRBs, that they should come forward to help us. Another bill we have put up, there was a bill passed in 1990. This is for the Mexicans. And it says that if there is a disaster, then US government should not kick out the illegal, the residents of that nation from their country. Currently around 40,000 Bangladeshis are illegal, reportedly illegal in USA. And therefore I would ask all the NRBs who are attending this session, they should make a strong plea to their congressmen and senators, so that they asked the US government to give this privilege, which they gave to the Hispanics. They should give this privilege to the Bangladeshi immigrants, or those are illegals in the USA. The third thing is there is another bill coming in the US Congress soon, and that is relevant to 59 low-income countries. Those 59 low-income countries, they will get import tax exempt, and there we need a lot of lobbying. And I would ask all my American Bangladeshi nationals to come forward and help us in this effort. This bill will be placed before the Congress soon. Earlier there was a bill for 14 countries that has not been passed. So this is a new one, and I want to make some campaign for these bills so that this can come on the floor. Now the roadmap is, first I would like to talk about what is good governance, and basically Amlatantra and how Bangladesh is doing in terms of good governance. The next issue is what the G8, the industrialized country, thinks about a failed government. And then I will show you some of the statistical information regarding top 100 countries who have been doing very well in terms of growth, in terms of inflation rate, in terms of life expectancy. And then we will talk about how Bangladesh economy is doing over the last many years. And then we'll see in this age of technology how the Bangladesh education is giving more importance towards sectors. Basically, we are giving more emphasis to the madrasa education. So we'll have some numbers towards that. And then we'll talk about, we have some good news that this country, Bangladesh, since 1975, there has never been any negative GDP growth rate. This is a miracle for a country which is always polarized with calamities, natural calamities, or man-made disasters. Instead, still that it did very well. Many, the middle-income countries cannot do it. Even Saudi Arabia, relatively rich, at times they have negative growth rate. But Bangladesh has been always a positive growth rate in spite of all the calamities for the last so many years. This is good news. We have few more good news also. The good news is that Bangladesh has many, many resources, and we have to use it. My proposal that I will submit, this proposal is based on my felt need that there are certain resources in the country, and we want to utilize them best. I don't want to take much time, so let me go to my main paper. I define what is governance. And governance, we said, describes the process of decision making generally by public authority and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. Good governance accomplishes this in a manner essentially free of abuse and corruption, and a due regard for the rule of law. Good governance is a process of accelerating development to enhance quality of life and enables to increase self-esteem and facilitate economic and social transformation. This is the general definition of good governance. There are 8 variables which we normally, to evaluate good governance, we try to look at those, how we are doing on those 8 variables. Those variables are participation, rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, consensus, orientation, equity and inclusiveness, effectiveness, efficiency, and accountability. We have the definition of all those, and these are the 8 general components to understand good governance. However, the World Bank has picked up only 6 variables, and we'll talk about that. Instead of 8, they have marked them into 6, and they have done some empirical studies on that. Before that, I would like to focus your attention to what is known as failed government. Failed government is, they have categorized 8 items. These are the 8 developed nations: US, Japan, Germany, UK, France, Italy, Canada, and Russia. They think that any country, a government that fails to protect life, liberty, and property of its citizens, it is a failed government. A government whose rules and laws fail to guarantee the rights of its citizens. A government that fails to provide the minimum medical facilities to its nationals is a bad government, failed government. A government that fails to provide minimum education to its nationals. A government that fails to ensure a sound banking system. A government that fails to guarantee freedom of speech and fails to protect the rights of civil societies, journalists, and its intellectuals. A government that fails to ensure transparent, judicious, and non-corrupt business practices and fails to guarantee impartiality of the government officials. a government that fails to enforce the laws of the land and the verdicts of the courts. If any government fails to do it, they are a failed government. If a country is a failed government, the issue is then the developed countries, the G8, will reduce giving them any aid or assistance because their citizens believe that it would be a wastage of the resources. And therefore, the issue of good governance has become more important. And we have to be very sensitive to this issue. Now, the World Bank has picked up out of 8, they have picked up 6 components of a good governance. And they are voice and accountability, political stability, and lack of violence or terrorism, government effectiveness, regulatory quality, rule of law, and control of corruption. So these are under 6. We have more detail. Many organizations, respected organizations, have calculated some index of governments. I would like to draw your attention to only one of those figures. Instead of the 6, I would like to draw your, due to the time constraint, only on the voice and accountability. These are the 2 studies done, one by the EIU, is Economic Intelligence Unit. It is a very prestigious British research group. The other one is the American PRS. Now, as per EIU, if you look at it, I have picked up 5 countries, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Malaysia, and USA. If you look at it, Bangladesh in 1996, its index was 31, which means its governance was better than 31% of the countries. So we are not that bad. It maintained 31, but in 2006, over the years, it has gone down pretty bad. And if you look at the American research group, as per their index, Bangladesh went down from 50% to 17%. It is a sharp decline in good governance. Now I looked at a country which is a democratic country, which is a free country. I have defined in 3 groups. There is an organization known as Heritage Foundation, and they try to pick up free, not free, or partially free. Free country is that country where there is multi-party democracy, there is rule of law, there is respect for the political opinions and views, there is respect for the journalists and the free press and media. Then we have partly free. In those societies are those democratic countries where there is one-party rule and they compromise rules and regulations, laws of the country due to the political influence. And not free where there is no freedom, no democracy. That's, those countries like, let's say Saudi Arabia or say Egypt, Pakistan currently, they have no freedom. So those could be not free societies. Now those are free countries. Those are democratic countries. Look at it. I picked up out of the total 218 states and continents, states and independent entities, economies of the world. This is from the CIA fact book. And this out of 218 countries and independent units, their income level, I looked at 4 variables. One is the GDP per capita, another is life expectancy, another is human development index, and the last one was the inflation rate. These are 4 categories I looked at it. And I picked up only the top 100 countries and looked at what is their situation. In the GDP per capita, top 100 countries, their income varies per annum from $7,800 to $69,900. Those are free countries. Out of 100, 81 are from the free countries. That means a democratic society can, in the long run, do better. 81% does better than the average. And in case of Bangladesh, we are 173rd now, currently in the 2007. We were 74th last year, but maybe improved 1. Then if you look at the life expectancy, if a country is wealthy, if a country is more developed, naturally people will live longer. That's why I picked up this particular variable. Look at this case. Life expectancy that varies from 72 years to 84 years within this range in the free society. Out of them, 71% are from the developed, free societies, and 14 only from the not developed countries. Among the not developed countries, many of them are oil-rich Middle Eastern countries. Now, the HDI, out of 176 countries, this 65% are those countries where democracy is prevalent, free society is prevalent, and partially free is better than the not free. That means partial free society, partial free democracies, that society like Bangladesh of 1991 to 2006, when we had a democracy, but it was largely being influenced by political manipulations, rules, regulations are manipulated there. But still, they are doing better than not free countries. And the last one, inflation rate. Their rate varies from negative 3.6% to positive 3.6%. Out of the 100, 69% are those countries where democracy is prevalent. So by and large, we see it is democracy which helps in the long run to help the economy as well as the quality of life. If you look at France or England, they have done so many good things. Quality of life, in terms of quality of life, is basically because there is democracy. These are some quantitative numbers, but apart from quantitative numbers, in terms of qualitative issues, democracy does better than a technocratic oligarchy or a military or civil military administration. Let's look at the next one, you see. We looked at, is it true? It's true for the world. Now, is it true for the Indian subcontinent, where we have different values and cultures? So I looked at some of the numbers. In case of these countries, I looked at GNI, per capita growth rate, GDP growth rate, inflation rate, average inflation rate, export growth rate, and then two other variables which helps future growth. In this society, I looked at this case. In Pakistan, is 80%, 90% non-democratic and maybe 10% democratic. India, which is neighbor, 100% democracy. If you look at the GNI per capita growth over a large period, this is from 1975 to 2000, 30 years period, India is doing much better than Pakistan or Bangladesh. Bangladesh is, we are very glad we are doing better than Pakistan in terms of the GNI growth rate. Then in terms of, let's say, GDP growth rate, India is much better, but in case of Pakistan, they are a little better than Bangladesh. But in case of inflation rate, India is much lower, and we are much better than Pakistan. In terms of export growth rate, if you look at India, is much superior. A democratic society is much superior vis-a-vis a civil, military, or technocratic government. Then we looked at these GC and the secondary school enrollment. Nowadays, the education is the backbone of the society. Look at the case of Pakistan. In case of Pakistan, the secondary education enrollment is only 27%. Bangladesh is much better, 50%, and India is much superior. That means future potential of growth is much higher in India vis-a-vis Pakistan, and future potential of Bangladesh is much higher vis-a-vis Pakistan. It's because we have better. Then we looked at, just in the case of Bangladesh, what is happening in terms of macroeconomic variables. I picked a few variables, and if you look at it, there is a lot of talk nowadays that political governments are bad. Yes, there is political polarization. There is a lot of strikes, hurtals, demonstrations. Given all those calamities, all those man-made calamities, still, if you look at the history of Bangladesh from 75 to 2005, 30 years period, political government in Bangladesh, their growth rate is superior vis-a-vis civil, military, oligarchic rule. Bureaucratic societies, they are not doing very well. But maybe you don't know much about this. Now, if you look at these numbers, look at the case of investment. In case of Bangladesh, while during 1975 to 1990, which is mostly run by non-political or elected governments, during that time, investment as percentage of growth rate was only 12.5%. It has gone up 21.3%. In terms of saving, which is the backbone for more investment and more prosperity, in case of the political period, 1991 to 2005, it has gone up over three times. It was 11% during 1975 to 1990, but 1991 to 2005 is 37.5%. This must be a surprise for Bangladesh, because under so much political polarization, so much squabbling and fighting, they did much better over a long period of time, even in case of Bangladesh. So these are some quantitative and macroeconomic variables. Besides this, if you look at the political government, democratic society, even in case of Bangladesh, now I see the media, which is the fourth government, they are much freer. And currently we talk about corruption. And corruption we talk because media was free. And as a democratic society, made people aware of these issues. As a result, we can talk. Otherwise, the earlier period, nobody talks about it, so you don't know how $37.5 billion that Bangladesh received over the periods as for aid and assistance. Out of them, 75% has been spoiled or has been pocketed by some individuals. Those who are not being, exposed, as a result, we don't know. And no bureaucratic government ever, instituted any commission to figure out how that, $37.5 billion been utilized in this country, how that has been misused. Nobody talks about those. But in a political government, people can talk. They have an opportunity to talk. Now we look at that in case of Bangladesh, they did relatively better than Pakistan in many areas. But still we have a long way to go. Like in case of land phone, we have pretty poor in Malaysia, or in China. In case of internet even, we are pretty poor. So I have some numbers, comparative numbers. If you look at those numbers, we are still behind. There is a lot of potential to do good things, for Bangladesh. Now here, we live in a world of technology. Unfortunately, the focus of Bangladesh education is not on technology. Look at the growth rate of madrasa students over 1984 to 2004, during the 20-year period, under various governments, has increased by 29% per annum, while it increased only 4% in the technology area. And also in the general education, which includes secondary education, higher secondary education, college education, universities, their growth rate is only, number of students' growth rate is 13%. It's much worse than that of madrasa. That madrasa I did not include maktab. I included only 4-year madrasa education. And if you see the growth rate, and naturally when madrasa students graduates, they normally become again madrasa teachers. And if you look at the teachers' growth rate, that is also pretty high. The number of teachers in case of growth rate of madrasa is 16%. In terms of technology area, it is only 307%, which is very poor. So our focus has to be changed. Current focus does not give us good. Now, look at we have some internal problem, some external problem. We have internal problem, you see this, and some natural problems. I have just highlighted that we never had this terrorism before, but since I did a study of 5 years before 9/11 and 5 years after 9/11, what happened? The growth rate of terrorism in South Asia, which includes Bangladesh, is very high. From 8%, these are number of incidents, went up from 8% to 21%. It's the second highest in the world. So we should be aware of it. And this is a problem that many governments in future will face. But these are not bad. Given all those, we are pretty hopeful. Bangladesh is the 3rd largest Muslim country. Labor force of Bangladesh is the 8th in the world. Natural gas, we are pretty good. You see, there are many areas where we are doing pretty good. And so, there are a lot of resources we have to utilize. Now, the major achievers in Bangladesh who are doing well, these are NGOs, agriculture sector, and garment and apparel sector, and expatriates. All of them, if you look at it, they are mostly outside the government control. What I'm trying to say, wherever there is a government control, there is a problem. Now, these are some of the literature says the major factors of competitiveness are these variables: openness of the economy, role and size of government, government budget and regulation, development of financial markets, quality of infrastructure. There are 2 types. One is human, quality of the human individuals. The other one is roads, highways, internet, and all those things. Availability of energy. Quality of technology, quality of business management, labor market flexibility, quality of judicial and political institution, and transaction cost or economic cost, whether the rules and regulations are transparent or not, whether there are redundant regulations and rules. You see, in many societies, people cannot invest, not because they have good quality, infrastructure like Saudi Arabia, very good infrastructure, but in terms of the rules and regulations, if you want to invest, you have to put up 370 documents, and they has to be original. And that costs a lot. So naturally, many people shy off from that. Now, the DGS, so naturally what we say, that we want to start a system, which is, I term it, district governance system, a system of multi-party democracy at grassroots level. Now, I have identified some of the major problems of Bangladesh. There are ill governance, bureaucratic red tape. It takes 1 to 3 days to start a business in US and Canada. it takes 135 to 140 days in Bangladesh. And rules are mostly non-transparent. There are a lot of discretionary power on the officials, unlike USA or Canada. The poor attitude, and this is one of the major reasons for Bangladesh, drawback is the mindset, attitude and negative mindset. We look everything in a negative way. Of course, the illiteracy, corruption is a big issue, but corruption has been there everywhere around the world. Even in USA, which in the development phase, corruption was the engine of growth in the USA. All big projects that have been done in the USA, those were done through corruption, and they did very well. Question is whether you have a dynamic corruption or is non-dynamic corruption. We can define it in different forms. Then we have, of course, the overpopulation and poor infrastructure, including weak legal and commercial laws and accounts practices, natural disasters, cyclones, floods, and all those. So these are some of the major problems that I identified. And there is also political polarization and bureaucratic civil and military intervention and disinformation and uncertainty. These are some of the major. However, major resources of Bangladesh are people, human resources. They are very adaptive, and water and rivers and canals, energy and initiative is people, natural gas, Miller language, background history. So we should make use of these beautiful resources that we have. So many human beings. And my system that I want to propose, they can take care of those, those resources. The Bangladeshi people, these are on the basis of these assumptions, we developed this, proposal. Bangladeshi people like to participate in nation building efforts. They enjoy year-round politics. They are resilient, hardworking, quick to imitate or adapt. Bangladeshi people are creative and highly energetic. And McGregor's theory and axiom theory, why? There are two theories. One is people are very dishonest, lazy, so you have to institute penalties and strong, harsh treatment to them. But there are also people who are very good people, honest, hardworking, they want to do things. For them, you have to provide incentives so that they can do better. We use that. And then we picked up another management thing with Edward Deming. He is known as the father of the modern day management science. And he has a rule, 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule, he said that if quality of a product, he is the father of modern day management. Because of him, Japanese products, which were very poor, they sharply improved their quality and became one of the giants in the world. And after that, he went back to USA, and USA, big corporation like Ford Motors, they picked up quality as the number one. Now this guy, he says that if the quality of a product or a service is bad, 80% is due to the system, and 20% is due to the individual person. And he also said another thing. He said if you want to change the system, then 80% depends on the top management, 20% depends on the followers like you and me. Now, we use that rules to do that, and also we use another modern day strategist who's now Potter's Ball. He said if you want to improve the society or the economy, you have to hit at the input level, at the root, not on the top. So we will use those things. Okay. Elected district governor, key to development management. Elected district governors, the type I'm thinking of, will have powers to control and manage. They will have to have power to appoint and terminate all the government employees within their districts. The central government will be minimized. I have listed out of this 45 ministries, I think, 38 ministries should be abolished. The Secretariat, Bangladesh Secretariat has become a caterpillar to growth. There should be basically abolished. Instead of all the major functions of those, like labor ministry, education ministry, those should be given to the district governor, elected district, and they should decide whether they should employ an individual or not, how much money they should get. In USA, each state has independence. Each governor don't get same amount of money. Governor of Massachusetts or New York, they get 3-4 times salary than the governor of Arizona. And the education, let's say superintendent of Massachusetts, because this state gives more emphasis to the education. As a result, he gets more than the salary of a governor, 2 times more than the salary of a governor. So it is why? Because the local people think this is their main focus. And it should be done in case of, I said the Bangladeshi people are very creative, energetic. And if I allow them to use their creativity, innovation, competitiveness, then, and we can only do it in a elected district governor who is independent. Totally independent. Basically, I will tell you which ministries would be, only 7 ministries that I think would be under the central ministry. One is the law, another is defense, another is foreign, and we make one foreign and external resources. And so many of the, like for example, information ministry. It has no role to play in this age of information. Each department has its own information officers or public relation officers. They should do the function. Instead of, this should be abolished. That in the process will make less government. We have seen that big government is a wastage to the nation, is a hindrance to the growth of a society. So we must downsize the government. And my suggestion is that we should abolish many of the ministries. We don't need this sort of extravagant ministries or no. And not only that, because they have a negative impact on the society. Now, there could be excesses in the district government, and therefore we have to develop, this is what I go with the, these McGovern's theory X and Y. We have to have some sort of powerful law ministry, powerful SEC, for example, anti-corruption bureau of this sort of. There should be some institution who should oversight and policing those governors so that they do not misuse. Now, I would like to tell you that how my system can increase the productivity and creativity and competitiveness. I give one example. District education officer. If a governor appoints a district education officer and his responsibility to have 100% primary enrollment, education enrollment, let's say, or 100% secondary education enrollment, and the parliament allocates some fund to that particular district at, by calculating population growth, stage of development, all those. Now, let's say a district got $100 million and said if you fully utilize, if you have 100% enrollment, only then you will get 100% allocation. If you have 80%, you will get 80 million. Okay? In that case, the district governor will appoint a education officer who would be very creative so that he can achieve the goal. And as a result, and if he achieves the goal, all other districts will be looking after to that education officer. They may entice him to go to their own district to increase their enrollment. And in the process, there will be a process of competition and competitiveness. No country can develop within or outside if there is no competition and competition. Current system that we have, there is no scope for competitiveness or competition, and we have to replace it. Look at another case. Currently, I don't know when I was a government servant in Bangladesh in the early 70s, with Akbar and others, we have ASIA, which you don't know. ASIA is supposed to tell you where are your deficiencies, where are your strengths. Unfortunately, in those days, we hardly ever had the chance to look at it. Those should be abolished totally. Anyway, now the technical and emotional, okay, these are some of the ways which we think then. Now, I talked about this TQM, and this is total quality map. It is not a one-step process. It is a continuous process of improvement. Now, when we start this process, the district governance system, initially there may be some drawbacks, but it is a continuous process, and who will do improving? It is the people of the local people who will say how to improve, and they will come up with ingenious ways. I believe that Bangladeshi people are very creative. They have a lot of innovations, and they like to help. Unfortunately, current system of government, only few bureaucrats, they have no time to think or reflect or review their issues. And basically, these are post hoc, they just sign. I know in my days, you see, we only sign and give it to another officer, and the guy who is down, I remember when I started the wage and a scheme, you see, it failed initially. And then I checked why it failed. And I went to the various sections, and the section officer wrote some notes, which he didn't do much studies, and he came up with it, and I changed it. I talked to the section officer, and things changed. And then it was approved. It was a success story in Bangladesh. It was introduced in 1974. Initially, it started with 4 products, then we issued 12 to 42, and it was one of the most public, on those days, a public policy, which was a success story. And it believed in the human beings, not on the government officials. I have nothing against the government officials, but they are so much inundated with so many issues, they have no time to reflect and review. As a result, their productivity and efficiency is so poor. And if you look at initially, our governance has gone down. I have the regulatory policies also. In all countries of the world, regulatory policy, the rules and regulations have improved. In case of Bangladesh, it is going down. This is a sad story. And it's not my numbers. The EU has done it. They have comparative studies, and I look at it, I find they're doing very bad. Now, my TC system, My business system will encourage competition, encourage creativity, enhance trust and responsibility, ensure transparency and accountability, reduce corruption, reduce waste of laws, inefficient resource allocation, encourage effective implementation, and naturally better governance. My dear friends, now I would like to show you something, and I need your help. Now, remember, the engine of growth is innovation and creativity, and no command system or bureaucracy system can do it. We look at the USSR, which totally failed. Now, the thing I want to draw your attention is, we don't want the following, never again. Look at it. On the left-hand side is a natural calamity. On the right-hand side, we have a man-made calamity. We don't want to see it again. We don't want to see this either. And yesterday's news, we must be afraid. We must not go to that situation anymore. We see in the Palestine case, this is what happens. Bangladesh is much superior to that. We should keep up our honor and image. We have a bad image problem of these types of pictures. We should stop to see any of these type of pictures. We don't want to see this. Look in the left-hand side, Bangladesh execution left on for public display. On the right-hand side, Rap's execution left on public. We don't want any extrajudicial killing. It is an image, our image is being destroyed because of this extrajudicial. It is one of the most heinous crimes. Extrajudicial killing is nothing but state terrorism. It has to be stopped. Look at this, we don't want it anymore. My dear friends, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. The other guy said, if you raise a voice for a just cause, another will follow, then another, and then another. It will create a mighty wave that is sure to shake the house of the mighty tyrants. This is Robert Kennedy. If you do, then may I ask you, will you change this political politics and vengeance-style DGS? Are you ready to change the current dysfunctional bureaucratic and administrative setup of ill governments? Will you promote and campaign for Jonagone Shadika, people's rights and establish DGS through a process of dialogue and consensus? We don't want to start, impose DGS from above. We want to develop it through consensus and dialogue. The proposal to the government, they should create a cell, and the cell should disseminate the information and let the public understand the beauty of it. If public understands the beauty of it, they will demand to introduce it. And in that case, Bangladesh can reach its goal. Thank you very much for listening to me.
I am also an ex-teacher of Kuwait.
We applaud you.
I was ex-teacher, not now. I left it long ago. So your speech was excellent, and
thank you.
All of the points can be fully utilized in Bangladesh. So let's make the process how to make it. And I have written one article in Bengali. I can give you later. এই তত্ত্বাবধায়ক সরকারের কাছে জনগণের প্রত্যাশা, because in long 36 years we didn't get any good government, either political or non-political. So we want good government through the process which has started by this government. So let's hope for the best. Thank you.
If anybody wants to contact, I have my cards, or I can tell my email is Abdul. I'll give it to you. Or my email is abdul_moment@hotmail.com or silat@verizon.net.
I'm Rafiqul Islam, a management consultant. My specific query is this is a wonderful roadmap for the success of our moving ahead. And you suggested a bottom-up approach, nothing from the top. But my query is to know, I just want to know what can be the roadmap? What are the ways to start the movement from bottom-up approach? So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. I believe that its government has to initiate. So government should start and create a cell. And cell will move from place to place and disseminate will give the structure, what is DTS, and how it can improve, how people's participation can be encouraged, how competition could be encouraged, the cell will also get feedback from individuals. And this should be transparent, fully disseminated. Media can play a big role. And individual, there should be a cell with few researchers, and they will collect those information. And initially, they should start in some pilot project. But there is one problem with the pilot project. The people, mid-career people, and the politician may not like it. We have done another study and found people who are opposed to it is mostly mid-career government servants and also politicians, because they lose some of their authority. So that they don't, we create this cell and disseminate information to various towns, districts, rural areas, everywhere. And in the process, there will be demand. Then everybody will say that this is what we want. Once everybody, majority says this is what, we can have a referendum. If everybody says so, we can start introducing it. And when we start, we have to be fully committed to it. So we have to understand the beauty of it first, and then there was you see, in Bangladesh, we have our administrative structure was started in 1835. That the law is still in, there has been little changes. Objective was basically protection and revenue collection. Our mindset is still there. When I was working as a private secretary in the early, in the mid-70s to some of the government ministers, people used to come with many proposals. Whenever we go for a visit, they used to come with proposals. Wherever I go, my hand full with proposals. But normally we would reject them. But if there is a government servant, he submits a proposal, we used to look at it. It was because our mindset, and that mindset has to be changed. Common people can do uncommon things. If I trust some gentleman, he would give me the, so we have to start trusting our people. Nowadays in the bureaucratic system, there is no trust. That's why so many checks. And if I would have trust someone, he will deliver me my trust. So, but the thing is, you ask, we should start a cell first and disseminate the information continuously.
Amir Mohammed Abdul Shikar, CAP, Soldier Figures. Good governance সম্বন্ধে আমরা গত 22 তারিখে জেদ্দায় সেনাপ্রধানের সাথে মিটিং করেছি 4 ঘন্টা। তো গুড গভর্নেন্স বলতে দেশে অর্থনৈতিক উন্নয়ন করতে গেলে আমরা গত 25 বছর থেকে আমি সৌদি আরবে যা লিমিটেড স্বাস্থ্য ব্যাংকে 30% ছিল সৌদি আরবে। 25 বছর আমরা সংগ্রাম করে তা মোট রিমিটেন্সের 44% নিয়ে গেছি। এটার কারণ হলো যেমন আমরা হুন্ডির বিরুদ্ধে সংগ্রাম করেছি, ব্যাংকিং চ্যানেলে বৈদেশিক মুদ্রা প্রেরণের উৎসাহ দিয়েছি প্রবাসীদেরকে, তাই গ্রোথ বেড়েছে এবং বর্তমানে সমগ্র বৈদেশিক মুদ্রার 44% একমাত্র সৌদি আরব থেকে আমরা 16 লক্ষ বাঙালি পাঠিয়ে থাকি। তো আমরা এই গুড গভর্নেন্স বলতে আমাদের কোন এক বন্ধু যে 22 তারিখে সেনাপ্রধানকে বলেছিলেন যে আমি চাই বা আমরা চাই ওই যোদ্ধাপরাধীদের বিচার। উনি জবাব দিয়েছেন যারা যোদ্ধাপরাধীদের বিচার চাচ্ছে পিছনে 34 বছর ওরাই শাসন করেছে।
আপনার প্রশ্নটা কি?
সেনাপ্রধানকে বলেছিলেন যে আমায় না, আমার সাথে এক বন্ধু বলেছিলেন যে যুদ্ধাপরাধীর বিচার চাই, যারা যুদ্ধ অপরাধী ওদের বিচার। উনি জবাব দিয়েছিলেন যে গত 37 বছর যারা সরকারে ছিল তারাই এখন বিচার চাচ্ছে, আমরা বিচারের জন্য আসিনি। সেনাপ্রধান বলেছেন আমরা দেশকে বিপদমুক্ত করার জন্য এসেছি, দেশের উন্নয়নের জন্য এসেছি। তো আমি এটাই আপনার কাছে চাচ্ছি যে দেশ গুড গভর্নেন্স হতে হলে আমার মতে দেশের স্বাধীনতা, উন্নয়ন, অর্থনৈতিক উন্নয়ন, আর অর্থনৈতিক উন্নয়ন করতে গেলে আমরা যারা অনাবাসী বাংলাদেশি আছি, ইউরোপ, আমেরিকা, মধ্যপ্রাচ্যে সবাই ব্যাংকিং চ্যানেলে বৈদেশিক মুদ্রা পাঠিয়ে দেশের অর্থনৈতিক উন্নয়নে এগিয়ে আসা আর হুন্ডি বয়কট করা, এটাই আমাদের প্রধান কাজ হবে। আর দ্বিতীয়ত
থ্যাংক ইউ। আপনার এটাই প্রশ্ন তো?
জি,
ওকে।
ওইটা এই ব্যাপারে একটু
আমি শাকুর সাহেবকে চিনি। When I was in Saudi Arabia, I worked for 5 years as the economic advisor to Saudi government. And during that time, the remittance, I did some study on Bangladesh also at the time. And Bangladesh toko the remittance of those that 14% or 49% used to come from Saudi Arabia. But এখন তাহলে যদি 37 হয়, it has gone down in terms of. Then, see, the issues that have been raised, of course, Hundito is bad, and we have written a lot about it. You know some of it. That Hundi it is bad for the economy, but everything has good and bad. You see, if you look at it, everything is good and bad. If someone wants to create a job abroad, particularly in Saudi Arabia, আপনি যদি job create করতে চান, তাহলে সাউদি লোকটাকে কিছু টাকা দিতে হবে. You have to pay 2,000 riyal to it, if you correct me. And where will you get the money? So what you do, you transfer this money illegally because government don't allow you to send it. If government could create a provision so that those are the manpower agencies, they get that money, through official channels. Then they create, because many of the agencies, some are bad, but many of them are creating jobs for Bangladeshis. They're doing an excellent job. These manpower agencies, they're doing an excellent job. They are the one who is creating jobs for Bangladeshis abroad, who is sending you them. But we have to discuss it. It's not one sentence. We have to discuss it, and there are ways to help it out. And as you know, we did some help when we were in Saudi Arabia. And I think the Hundi is not good, but it has to be tackled in an intelligent way. Yeah. Anyone has a question? That's the last question.
After the district governor concept, এটা তো 1975 সালের আগে একবার করা হয়েছে। আমরা যতটুকু জানি ডিস্ট্রিক্ট গভর্নররা ওত নিয়েছিলেন, ওত নেওয়ার পরে তারা শাসন করার সময় পান। এর আগেই বঙ্গবন্ধু মারা গেছেন এবং বাকশালের পতন হয়েছে। আমার কাছে মনে হয়েছে যে এই যে উপর থেকে কিংবা সেল করে আপনি যে ব্যাপারটা বলছেন, যদি এই জিনিসটাকে ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করতে হয়, তাহলে আসলে এটা রেগুলেশনারি গভর্নমেন্ট দরকার। রেগুলেশনারি গভর্নমেন্ট দরকার। এবং আমাদের কি এই মুহূর্তে এবং আগামী 10 বছরের ভিতরে এরকম রেগুলেশনারি মেন্টালিটি নিয়ে কোনো গভর্নমেন্ট আসতে পারে, এটা কি আপনি মনে করেন?
Thank you very much. শুনেন, revolutionary গভর্নমেন্টের প্রয়োজন নাই আমার ধারণা। আপনি যেটা 75 এ বলছিলেন, yes, they started, but it was a little different than what I am proposing. On those days, we discussed a lot with Dr. Sattar, who was the economic secretary to Prime Minister Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. উনি যেটা করলেন এটা appointed করলেন, which I opposed anyway. But I thought if it is elected and through a process of consensus and dialogue, it was done from above, and that was a big mistake. Now, যখন নতুন সরকার আসলো 76-এ, then we created, somehow my boss was the chairperson for the services reorganization committee, যাতে আমরা অনেকগুলো সার্ভিসকে 16টার মধ্যে নিয়ে আসলাম. And it was Saifur Rahman who was virtual chairman, Zia was the chairman. So তখন যেটা করা হলো, তখন first thing, the civil bureaucracy and the police bureaucracy demanded, Salahuddin Shah led by police, Salahuddin Shah secretary ছিলেন, ওনারা বললেন যে প্রথম এই ডিস্ট্রিক্ট গভর্নরটা ভেঙে দিতে হবে. This came from bureaucrats, civil and police bureaucrats. Their first mission was, I remember Ahsanul Haq was the secretary of the commission, and he asked me, we must drop this one first. This is it. But that has nothing to do with terms of reference. So I raised a voice. There's nothing to do with the terms of reference. But that's what we did. Now, we don't need a revolutionary government. What we need, a dissemination of information. Then people will demand to do it. Then the politician will have the manifesto. I have put up this proposal to Ershad government, Khaleda government, then this Sheikh Hasina government. Now, unfortunately, what I just tell them, that they should put up in the manifesto and let the people understand it, and they let them promote it, campaign it. And in the process, this is what they say. I want through a regular process, not a revolutionary, and it can be happened. I think in my own lifetime, this may happen. More so because bureaucracy day by day is becoming more inefficient and not doing much better than they used to be. So maybe the people will, in the future, will demand that we need that type of government.
So, people demand.
Yes, it is possible that we need.
Whether it is possible or not.
People will demand when they are educated.
Yes, education is the prime. We have to divert attention.
Who will disseminate this plan to the people?
We have to do
Then
that.
you need-
You and me. If you raise your voice, another will join you. Another will join you. Another, then you can create mighty ocean.
I believe.
Little drops of water makes a mighty ocean. Little energy makes a great.
I believe your slogan. I believe your slogan, and I have every faith at that system. But জাস্ট কিছুদিন আগে যখন জুডিশিয়ারিকে পৃথক করা হয়, তখন আমরা আমলাদের ভিতরে যে খুব দেখতে পাই, তারা যেভাবে মিটিং করে জুডিশিয়ারির বিপক্ষে অবস্থান নিচ্ছে, এবং যদি ডিস্ট্রিক্ট গভর্নর করা হয়, দেন ডিসি থাকবে গভর্নরের আন্ডার, যদি ডিসি থাকে, গভর্নরের আন্ডারে থাকে, এবং ডিসিদের আন্ডারে পুলিশ ছিল।
It is possible, sir. এটা হয়েছে জুডিশিয়াল অপোজিশন থাকা you need a commitment.
এক মিনিট স্যার, ডিসিদের আন্ডারে পুলিশ ছিল, এসপিরা ছিল, এখন এসপিরা আলাদা, ডিসিরা আলাদা, ঠিক আছে? কেউ কারো আন্ডারে সমান পোর্টফোলিও গভর্নমেন্ট ক্যারি করে। এইটাতেই কিন্তু ডিসিরা মনে করতেছে যে তারা পাওয়ারলেস হয়ে গেছে, দে ডোন্ট হ্যাভ এনি পাওয়ার, ঠিক আছে? যে ডিস্ট্রিক্ট ম্যাজিস্ট্রেসি থাকছে না, সুতরাং একজনকে ডিটেনশনে দেওয়া যাচ্ছে না, একজনের বেল ক্যান্সেল করা যাচ্ছে না, একজনকে বেল দেওয়া যাচ্ছে না। দেন হোয়াট ইজ মাই পাওয়ার? আপনি তো প্রথমেই এই জায়গা থেকে বড় বাধার মুখোমুখি হবে। দেন হাউ ইউ eliminate this type of obstacle?
You
we'll have
create public commitment. We can talk more later.
At the end of the
Thank you very much for the time.
At the moment for a very spirited presentation enriched with a lot of statistics, some of which even inspires me that we as a nation are not at the end of the list. I thought, whatever the indicator is, whether denominator and numerator changes their role, we are at the end of the list always. But he has shown some of the statistics, which is really inspiring for us. We have the next presentation. It is by Mr. Ahmed Imran of Australian National University.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and assalamu alaikum. And it's a very hard task to finish it within 20 minutes because I was about to miss this conference because I've been struggling to get it here from Montreal to get a ticket over through the Indian Airlines and others because of the 25th December, Christmas and so on. So I really struggled to be here, and finally I'm here, just a bit tired and sleep deprived and jet lagged. I think you will bear with me with this. So I thought I will be reaching a bit early to prepare for this to make it demand a bit paper into a 20 minutes presentation, which I won't do, but maybe I will have to skip over while talking. I came to know about this conference from Scholar Bangladesh when I was last visiting Bangladesh during my data collection sometime in July. And I promised them that I will try my best to be here because I like that initiative very much, which has got enormous potentiality in terms of knowledge transfer for our motherland and Bangladesh. I don't want to call myself a scholar because although I'm pursuing scholarship from a different background, unlike many other academics, I came from from a public servant area, although it's a bit different. But now I'd like to know that, following the previous presenter, who all are the public servant here? You don't have to stand up, just raise your hand. Say anyone?
One's public servant.
Okay, I can see a couple of hands. Actually, this conference is for you, and you are the actually main driver for this. And it's very important for you as well. Now, the paper I'm going to discuss today is drawn from my PhD research. This is specifically written for this conference. I may not be able to cover the whole paper, but I would like to recommend those who are interested to read the paper, and I would appreciate your feedback and comments on that. I was told that it may be published in some of the conference proceedings, so you may look into this. The title of my today's presentation implies a way or a road to move forward. Now, if it is, the because of a road means a strategy, a direction, if not a very specific direction, but a general direction. Because a specific direction is sometimes very risky and where chances of failure is likely to be more. So a general direction based on relevant theories and based on my particular studies will be the focus or subject matter of this talk today. Now, when we talk about the way to move forward, then many questions arises like what type of road it is, where the road is it in Africa or is it in America or is it in Dhaka, what's the environment, what's the road condition, is it muddy, sloggy or so on, what is the trafficability, and lastly the means you will be using or the vehicle you will be using to travel the road. So the circumstances, environment and overall atmosphere are extremely important, which must be taken into account. You simply cannot ignore them. Exactly this is what I want to ponder today. Which one should be made first? Is it the road or the car? This is a bit tricky question, but equally applies in case of e-government in Bangladesh. Now, the governments in today's modern world are experiencing a massive transformation in their work process, their mode of delivery, and internal and external communication by virtue of ICT applications, from a paper wall to an electronic world. Many argue that the word, the letter E in the e-government will be irrelevant and redundant in future, because whenever you talk about the modern government, inevitably it has to be an e-government. Again, with the decreasing price of technology and growing complexity of organizations, ICT is no longer a luxury which only the rich can afford. Rather, increasingly it is becoming a tool for improving efficiency, reducing poverty, and economic growth. Now, the international debate about the relevancy of ICT in LDC is already been resolved with an overwhelmingly yes answer. So e-government in Bangladesh is still in early stage, whereas the developed world is transforming to more advanced stages or mature stages. As such, the gap between the two is increasing, resulting in greater digital divide. E-government is also closely linked with the global transition to the knowledge-based economy or knowledge-based society that modern governments are aiming for. The government sector, especially in LDC like Bangladesh, can play a significant role in adoption of ICT in other spheres as well. Being the largest user of computers, government has the potential to exert strong influence on the diffusion of ICT throughout the country through its policies and regulations. Nevertheless, ICT adoption and implementation is a complex issue, especially in the context of a LDC. No particular or single theory as yet have clearly explained the issues, taking all the complexities into account. There is an overwhelming agreement among those who have addressed this issue so far that the barriers are less technological than human. These issues encompass the overall social, economic, and political environment of the country. So the effort needed to address these challenges is a prolonged one, but we simply cannot afford to waste any more time. Whatever complexities are involved, a deliberate strategy must be formulated addressing the barriers in the context wherever it is applicable. So only a clear strategy can pave the way towards the successful implementation of ICT. Otherwise, the way forward will never be within our sight. So today I will start with a brief outline about the e-government research domain, its context and current status in Bangladesh, followed by some empirical research findings, the relevant theoretical guidelines, and lastly, I will conclude with some strategic directions based on theoretical guidelines. Now, there is a popular misconception, not in Bangladesh, even in many of the developed countries, that e-government is all about delivering government services over the internet. This assumption is limited for two reasons. Firstly, it narrows the vision for e-government because it doesn't include the wide range of governmental activities that are not direct services. Secondly, it grossly undermines the nature of e-government, leaving an impression that a nicely designed user-oriented website is the whole story. It fails to recognize that while the citizen sees e-government from the public side of website or email screen, the real work of e-government is on the other side, inside the government itself. So e-government is thus essentially an IT-led reconfiguration of public sector governance, how knowledge, powers, and purpose are redistributed in light of new technological realities of the modern world. The three spheres of public sector organization using ICT include improving the government process, that is e-administration, connecting with citizens, e-services, and building external interactions, which is termed as e-society. Taken as a whole, these activities can be referred as e-government. This classification can be referred elsewhere as G2G, G2B, G2C, means government to government services, government to business, and government to citizen services. Again, many assume that all citizens need to have access to computers for e-government to succeed. This is not always true. Australia, for example, is one of the leading e-government countries. But as of today, only 39% of its population use computers to access the government services. Without personal access, people are receiving the benefit of e-government indirectly, since all the government processes, that is G2G and G2B, are automated. Overall, even in the Western world, the empirical research so far has predominantly focused on G2C and G2B, which are actually the most visible occurrences and artifacts of e-government. For example, the government websites, transaction between governments and private sector businesses. On the contrary, the other dimensions of e-government, that is G2G and government to employee, that deal with internal effectiveness and efficiency, have attracted much less empirical research. Ironically, this is where much of the government activities are involved and where much of the taxpayers' money is directed. These important aspects of e-government have the highest potential internal impact in terms of change in government, but remain grossly understudied. Scholl in his study further reveals, I quote, current e-government research might possibly suffer from the iceberg phenomenon, where most attention is dedicated to the above surface phenomena, while subsurface phenomena is not readily available to scientific scrutiny, unquote. One of the reasons possibly, people think that government organization as an iron shield, which is difficult to penetrate or change. Official secret acts are something like the Berlin Wall, which discourages many to intervene and research in this area. But this iceberg has to be broken in order to solve the puzzle or to succeed in e-government initiatives. Given the current environment and context of Bangladesh, G2G, G2B has a great potential to succeed and to begin the e-government process. The primary concern at this stage should be to create an e-government environment within the government organizations by automating official and business processes within the spectrum of G2G and G2B. A well-coordinated intergovernmental connection would prepare the ground for improved information access and greater service efficiency for customers and citizens at later stage. This, however, by no means implies the citizen access should be given less importance. Rather, I would say that it should continue to progress side by side until G2G structures are ready to deliver. Now let me refresh about the current e-government environment of Bangladesh, which many of you are well aware of. We have to agree Bangladesh is falling much behind in ICT adoption in the public sector area. Despite some initiatives such as the formation of ICT task force with the Prime Minister as the chairperson and the formulation of National ICT Policy 2002, only few ministries and government agencies have attained limited e-government capability and adopted ICT in their work process. In 2003, support to ICT task force was formed under the Ministry of Planning to assist the ICT task force in realizing various projects related to ICT, particularly e-government. Government readiness index much lower below the SAARC average. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So I will share some of the photos of our government, like my previous speaker, what is prevailing in Bangladesh office today. This is a picture of a record room in an important government organization in Bangladesh. This has already exceeded its capacity to hold any more records. Now it is becoming impossible to manage this increasing amount of records for which there is no systematic plan or indexing to trace out the record. So when you are looking for any record, it takes sometimes even 7 days, few weeks, or even a month. And then what you end up getting is something like this. Just imagine the future, how difficult it is going to be when the record and papers are adding up every day. Long queues in front of Bangladesh government offices and banks are a regular picture in Bangladesh. Queuing is costly in terms of time and energy, and it adds to the problem of increasing traffic, which in turn contributes to environmental, health, and safety hazards. In Bangladesh, ICT is still seen as a hardware and software industry. Its wider application and implication within the national economy in terms of information processing and information management is quite messy. Presently in Bangladesh, there is no integrated collaboration of work process between the various government agencies. Mostly they work as autonomous units rather than as a subsystem integrated into a synergistic system. This lack of collaboration between departments hinders ICT-based networking procedure. Take for example the land administration. Now for any piece of land, its registration is handled by one agency, it's surveyed by another, and it's maintained and taxed by a third agency. Ironically, there is not much of collaboration among these agencies who are dealing with the same piece of land, whereas this could be a simply one-stop shop, and with one click of the mouse button one could get all the information regarding that piece of land. Unfortunately, lack of collaboration between agencies results in different information from different agencies regarding the same piece of land. Similarly, ICT departments need extensive collaboration and integration within themselves. But what we see in the ICT area is that the infrastructure part is with one ministry, policy with another, and training with another ministry, where a lack of coordination and integration often creates bottlenecks, as one is closely dependent on the other. So the successful implementation of ICT requires extensive collaboration between ministries. Without such collaboration, ICT simply cannot succeed. This could be further revealed through the comment of one of the think tanks during the field study in Bangladesh. I quote, "Although the government has set up a number of task forces, national committees, and other things, but a systematic coordinated approach towards this thing is somehow absent. So institutionally, who is in charge? We see the Prime Minister's office off and on taking initiative or in an isolated manner. These or the other ministry or commissions are doing those kind of things, but we don't see a comprehensive spearheading of this within the institutional framework. So there is a coordination failure over here, there is a political will deficit, and of course there is a whole issue of technical expertise and human resource." Unquote. During the first phase of this study, a series of focus groups were conducted, followed by semi-structured interviews with important stakeholders in Bangladesh. This data was analyzed using qualitative data analysis software NRB-PBO. The outcome provided a rank list of barriers to the adoption of ICT in the public sector of Bangladesh. The pie chart shows a quantitative representation of ranking scores. The barriers clustered into three groups within the lack of knowledge, by far the strongest identified barrier. The next cluster consists of attitude and mindset of decision maker, lack of political will and leadership, lack of planning and strategy, and infrastructure fit. The third cluster was formed by other barriers like bureaucratic business process, lack of expertise and professionals, the socio-economic condition, followed by lack of laws and rules, lack of citizen demands, and lack of championship. Now, the principal barrier, lack of knowledge, entails not only lack of basic knowledge and education on ICT, but also implies lack of perception and awareness amongst the leaders, stakeholders, government officials, and the general public as a whole about its use and implications. The subcategories are shown in the screen. Now, a weak and inadequate education system, especially in information system and information technology, is failing to produce the required workforce for Bangladesh. Unfortunately, the business values of IT and IS are not commonly understood even by the many tertiary educated people of the country. Many of the government officials who join the public service after studying in public universities barely come in contact with computers. As such, the computer shyness and ignorance remains. This enforces existing work environments and the business process inherited by the legacy system. Those officials who have some interest usually do not get support from superiors who are especially most conservative and not IT savvy. On the citizen side, language appeared to be a major obstacle. The computer's basic language, English, is not given much importance in the current education system. This category included subcategories of lack of motivation, confusion about novelty, resistance to change, not ready to accept new ideas, fear of unknown, and losing job. The typical mindsets, especially among the decision makers and government officials, are holding back ICT adoption in the public sectors. The organizational members do not see any material benefit for sharing the information. In addition, participants also listed problems like a weak focus on work process redesign and re-engineering the system, lack of rewards and punishment, ownership problem due to the transfer of government officials, lack of IT support services, lack of commitment, absence of a dedicated organization to oversee the government, vested interest in project creation and implementation as other hindrances for ICT adoption in Bangladesh. Now, literature suggests the environment in LDCs is volatile, where each LDC's environment is unique in nature and there is actually no one-size-fits-all approach. Although our focus is on government use of ICT, it is necessary to consider the government sector in interaction with entities and structure at other levels, which will both constrain and enable the actions of a government can take. Now, the figure in the screen shows a multi-layered approach to the problem, something like the layers of an onion. At each level, the actions of entities within that level are both constrained and enabled by the structures of the level above them. Now, if we put the factors and barriers which emerge from the study in this context model, we find the ICT environment of Bangladesh looks like this. These different sizes of the text reflects the gravity of their influence on e-government in Bangladesh. I will just quickly run over these slides as I can see that I have got hardly any time left. Now, there is a saying that if you want to really swim well in the sea water, you want to measure the depth of the water and first. So, similarly, in order to deal with public service organization, one must have in-depth knowledge of the public sector organization, its culture, its history, tradition, and its typical characteristics. So, the immersion of the organizational culture is extremely valuable to conduct such research. So, understanding the public sector organization's culture is extremely important before introducing any innovation like e-government. Like Lammers and Hickson studied organization from several countries and found three cultural forms. Like one is Latin type, mostly French, Italian, Spanish, which is highly centralized, rigid stratification and sharp inequalities. Then Anglo-Saxon, traditional type. Actually, Bangladesh falls into traditional type where more of paternalistic leadership, implicit rules, and lack of boundaries between organization and non-organization role exists. Again, the public sector has got a few other characteristics that than any other private organization. Like the motivation to invest in ICT is different. That's because in public sector organization there is no competition. The people do not have any other choice to switch over between the governments because it's the only one government. Then this other, like the tasks and goals are given from above, and customers, as I said, have hardly any choice. Then IS managers have a lot of limitations, like procedures are very different and often very complicated and bureaucratic. Those who are serving in the public service, they know that how difficult it is even to procure a mouse, the bunch of papers you have to produce to maintain the formalities. Now I have I will just quickly run over the slides. The relevant theories that to address the problems that we have included in this study is Rogers' diffusion of innovation theory, Scott's institutional theory, and Atwell's knowledge barrier organizational learning framework. Depend on the strength of R&D capabilities that enable the required knowledge to construct and use the innovation. There is a growing competition and pressure even amongst the developed countries to ensure reduced cost and improved quality. This requires increased investment in R&D activities. Many of the developing countries giving a high priority to R&D activities in the ICT sector and building up a broad range of related capabilities like Bermuda, Brazil, Indonesia, Jamaica, Malaysia, and so on. Lastly, the media, as I said, mass media channels are often the most rapid and efficient means to inform potential adopters about the existence of an innovation and to create awareness. This has been emphasized by Rogers' innovation theory as well. Like the radio, TV, newspapers are extremely powerful to reach out many in Bangladesh. So, also the interpersonal channels are often effective in pursuing individuals to accept new idea. Through social channels, face-to-face interactions with people of similar socioeconomic status. In this case, the local champions can play a significant role or the gatekeeper role. The problem is attitudinal change, and ICT or e-government is sort of a buzzword spreading around the public offices for quite some time. But whether our government organizations are really serious, prepared, and mindful about this or just joining the herd is a big question. Organization members' attitude towards technology and decision-making process are important organizational characteristics of adoption decision-making. So, in contrast, the mindless organization pays little attention to identifying and exploring new innovations. The mindless organization, just to justify their adoption, they put out the logic that everyone is doing or it's time to catch up, so we are doing it. So the behavior is deeply rooted in multiple contexts, which is motivated by the culture associated with informal as formal structures. Now coming to the million-dollar question, how to change this attitude within ourselves. Now, this Scott's institutional theory suggests a normative pressure through education, professionalism, training, and socialization are useful to bring about this attitudinal change in the public service environment. Now, a philosophical shift is needed in the public service culture, its recruitment, its training orientation, and business process. Effective and planned change can inform users of useful information to help them adjust their cognitive ideas and the system and the implementation. It would prevent users resisting change. Members' attitude should be transformed from resistance to supportive and from reactive to proactive. Organizations need to develop tactics that will foster favorable attitude towards the ICT innovation. Then Lastly, the motivation and incentive and reward should be there, which will encourage the government officials to change the attitude. I'm skipping over the other issues like administrative reform is indeed one of the preconditions for successful implementations. Outdated laws and regulations that do not anticipate the potential of IT will continue hamper system integrations. Now, attempt to change some of the laws often appear to be similar to proposition to change the constitutions. It is a task that is more tedious and time-consuming rather than impossible. Then the cultural sensitivity of the strategy has to be taken well care of. A technology is never a technical artifact, it's also a social construction. Thus, the meaning given to the technology can differ among people as well. And this other thing is the approach to implementation has to be advances in infrastructure, access, outreach were found to be more successful. Then leapfrogging is also possible, like Mongolia is one of the examples which considerably progressed and bypassed transactional stages of e-government. People talked about dedicated organizations because the government organizations, most of the government organizations are busy with their own jobs, so a separate organization could oversee the e-government initiative with strong coordination and partnership with private sectors. That has been done in many other developing countries, in Australia, for example, HEMO. So I will just conclude by saying that delivery business value through IT is a knowledge-based endeavor. This idea is further strengthened through this empirical study. To promote ICT successfully in Bangladesh, it is necessary to create a knowledge-based society and a skilled force that is capable of re-engineering the existing government system into a modern automated system. E-government application in the public sector should be value-driven rather than technology-driven. Thereby, the strategies to implement appropriate information systems are more important than the specific technology employed. These strategies need to ensure that social and cultural values and perceptions are receptive to the technology rather than opposed to it. Hence, awareness about the technologies need to be communicated and understood at all levels, including the general public, so that the society is prepared to embrace the e-revolution. To do so, it is critical that leaders have a common vision and strategy together with a strong commitment. I would like to finish with a question or a note to our decision makers that we are living in 21st century. To move from point A to B, we have different means. Now it is our choice which means we should adopt. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Umar. We are supposed to have two more guests. One is representative of UNDP and Professor Nazmul Hassan, Karimullah of Dhaka University. Are you here? If not, then I may call for one or two questions to the speaker.
Assalamu alaikum. Jawad Islam, Assistant System Analyst, PPTC. Representation দেখলাম যে আমাদের ICT adaptation public sector knowledge এবং attitude big factor. তো আমরা attitude-টা চেঞ্জের জন্য আমাদের কি কি ইনিশিয়েটিভ নেওয়া দরকার? যেমন আমি বলতে চাই যে লেস টেকনোলজি যে বলা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের টেকনোলজিতে অনেক পিছিয়ে আছে। তো অনেক ইনিশিয়েটিভ কিন্তু ইতিমধ্যে আমাদের টেকনোলজি ইউজের দিকে নিয়ে যাচ্ছে। আমি কয়েকটা উদাহরণ দিতে চাই। কারণ আমরা এখন এসএসসি বা এসএসসি রেজাল্ট ওয়েবসাইটে বা মোবাইলে পাচ্ছি। ডিবি অ্যাপ্লিকেশন আমরা দেখেছি যে আমাদের একদম গ্রামের লোকজন ডিবি অ্যাপ্লিকেশন কম্পিউটার ইন্টারনেটের মাধ্যমে সাবমিট করেছে। আমরা দেখেছি টেলিটকের সিম বন্টন নিয়ে, সেখানে সারা রাত লাইনে দাঁড়িয়ে থেকেছে লোকজন, সে পিটুনি খেয়ে হসপিটালে গিয়েছে। সেটাকে আমরা ওয়েব বেস করে দেওয়ার পর আমাদের এই ধরনের প্রবলেম হল। আমার প্রশ্ন যে টেকনোলজি লেস টেকনোলজি এটা আমাদের স্বীকার করতেই হবে, কিন্তু এই ধরনের কোনো ইনিশিয়েটিভ, এই ধরনের কোনো টপ লেভেল ইনিশিয়েটিভকে আমাদের পিপল বা আমাদের যারা টেকনোলজি ব্যবহার করবে তাদের কি অ্যাটিটিউড এবং নলেজটাকে চেঞ্জ করতে পারে না? এবং পারলে এটা কি কি ইনিশিয়েটিভ নিলে আমাদের যারা টেকনোলজি ইউজ করবে তাদের নলেজ এবং অ্যাটিটিউডটা খুব দ্রুত চেঞ্জ হতে পারে? আপনার কি ধারণা? থ্যাংক ইউ।
I actually skipped over these slides possibly, but this is a very good question. Exactly, as I said, this is $1 million question, how to change this attitude. Because an attitude cannot be changed radically overnight. It's a long-term process. And to do this long-term process, as per the Scott's institutional theory, it suggests there are 3 types of pressures working in the organizations. If I go back to the slides, just for a short, yes. So there are 3 types of pressures are always working within the organizations, that coercive pressures which come from the government leaders, and the mimetic pressures and normative pressures. I will show you this. If you look at this picture in the screen, that the legal obligation, the coercive pressures come from the power, from the leaders, in the form of mandates, government. These are very much coercive pressures, mandates. But other pressures, it's not a direct pressures, but indirect pressures that flows on over the society, like cultural obligation, social and moral obligation. People like to mimic others. Like when they see that some other organizations are also adopting such systems, so they try to mimic others. Like the government organization, like you say that TV lottery has been, because people saw that the others are doing these things, so they have followed the stampede hearing. So this has been, this flows on through the society, attitude, ongoing practices, and or ongoing values. So these values will be generated automatically. One of the, if you deploy the education in the society. So as I said, that education deployment has an potential impact to create a flow-on effect over the society in the long term. So this is how the attitudinal change. I said the education is one of the main driver to change the attitudinal change, because people doesn't know about, because people are shy about it. They're ignorant. I mean that there is a fear of unknown in it. So that actually hinders the adoption of ICT among our decision makers. Like many of there is a superstition still that ICT. There is a threat of virus, there is a threat of uncertainty and risk. So this would go on when the knowledge, proper knowledge is flowing in the society. It's a knowledge-based society.
One more question.
Thank you very much. আমার প্রশ্নটা আসলে দুজনকে, কারণ আমরা দুজন প্রেজেন্টারের কথা শুনলাম। প্রথমে যিনি বললেন জনাব ওনার আলোচনা থেকে শুনলাম যে একটা ডাইনামিক কোনো স্ট্র্যাটেজি নিলে অল্প সময়ের মধ্যে একটা চেঞ্জ আসা সম্ভব। জনাব আহমেদ ইমরান সাহেবের আলোচনা শুনলাম যে এটা একটা সমস্যাত্মক ব্যাপার। তো আমার যেটা একটা প্রাইভেট প্রতিষ্ঠান আছে, আমার যেটা মনে হয় একটা সুন্দর পলিসি এবং একটা ডাইনামিক পলিসি খুব অল্প সময়ে চেঞ্জ করতে পারে। তো আমার প্রশ্ন দুজনের কাছেই, যে বাংলাদেশে আমরা প্রতিনিয়ত এই ব্যুরোক্রেটিক অ্যাটিটিউড, রেড ট্রাপিজম আমরা প্রতিদিন শুনছি। এমনকি অনেক ব্যুরোক্র্যাটকেও এই কথা বলতে শুনছি যে ব্যুরোক্রেসি একটা সমস্যা। যিনি আজকে চেয়ার আসেন, যিনি ওই চেয়ার থেকে চলে যাবেন, ওনার রিটায়ারমেন্ট নেওয়ার জন্য অনেক রেড ট্রাপিজমের ফাঁদে পড়ছেন। আসলে ব্যুরোক্রেসি যে বিষয়টা, সেটা আমরা যেভাবে বলি না কেন, আসলে কে ব্যুরোক্র্যাট? যিনি যে রিটায়ার হয়ে চলে গেলেন তিনি বলছেন ব্যুরোক্রেসি সমস্যা পড়ে গেলাম। আমাদের এখানে দুটো প্রশ্ন, একটা হলো যে ব্যুরোক্র্যাট আসলে কে, আরেকটি প্রশ্ন যেটিকে আসলে শর্ট টার্মে করা সম্ভব, লং টার্মে করা সম্ভব। যদি সম্ভব হয়, আপনারা যদি যারা এসছেন ইন্টেলেকচুয়াল, আমি বলবো তারা গভর্নমেন্টকে কোনো প্রেসক্রাইব করতে পারেন বা কোনো কি স্টেপ নিতে পারেন যে এখনকার যে গভর্নমেন্ট আছে তাদেরকে কোনো কিছু বলার জন্য যে আপনি এইভাবে একটা ডাইনামিক চেঞ্জ আনা সম্ভব। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
Actually, as I said, there's a two thing actually. Bureaucracy is it's not a Bangladesh issue, and the administrative bureaucracy is there in all the countries. And when I started this process, when I was finding this from Bangladesh study, And I was trying to relate what happened actually in 20 years back or 30 years back in Australia and developing countries. I found the similar things were happening initially in the initial takeoff. So there is nothing to be scared of that Bangladesh is actually in the primitive stage where the developed countries has gone so far in a transformation state, but we are in the process. But the thing is that we have not yet started the process. That is the main problem. We expect the change or result overnight. That is a problem. You mentioned about one thing which is very important, that right planning and strategy. Actually, what we need to have a proper strategy. Maybe it's not, we shouldn't expect that what would happen the next day. We shouldn't expect anything the next morning or the next month. We should expect something maybe in 10 years time or 5 years time, the progress. But our step should be in the right track. So that's what I believe, that there are certain things like deployment of education and other things. You cannot see the result overnight, but you can see in the long term. So that's why we need to focus. Like we are fighting with the symptoms, not the causes. I think we should focus on the causes first for the long-term stability and sustainability.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Imran. We would like to close our session at 5 p.m. Okay, we do not want to delay the process. I would now like to request special guest, Mr. Abu Muhammad Munir to deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable moderators, Mr. Dr. Muhammad Takuba, paper presenter, Mr. Abdul Momen, PhD, and Mr. Ahmed Imran, and dear participants. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. This is indeed a pleasure for me to be a part of this important episode organized by non-resident Bangladeshi scholars. Before I share my views on the subject matter of the seminar, I would like to offer my deep appreciation to the dreamers and the executors of this event. Many of our national scholars are residing abroad with huge knowledge, experience, and potentials in their respective fields. They provide intellectual inputs to the foreign countries and earn foreign currency for us. Also, their talents can be used for our national development. We need to seriously think on it and create a level field so that they can intellectually contribute to our development efforts. I expect the first NRB conference 2007 would be successful to create interfaces among the local and non-resident Bangladeshi scholars, government, businesses, and NGOs in the country. I thank and congratulate both of them for their excellent presentation, and both are actually switch over from 19th or 20th century situation to the present context of 21st century. We need to change our mindset, and we need to change our system in government and system in methodology and recruitment and to everywhere in our country. That's why I like to express that if we want to make a rapid or constructive change, that should be in IT sector first. If we want to prioritize which to be done first. So in both sectors, that right sizing of the government or taking new initiative in government, it relates to change in IT sector and knowledge, development of knowledge in IT sectors. Patterns of ICT diffusion worldwide indicate that the policy program approach of the past few years has fallen far short of providing opportunity for all. Though in part successful in some countries, it has left gaps which can only be filled through a systematic approach to development, focusing on both the emerging realities of the information society and the need of remodel the functioning of the institutions and mechanisms in place to implement the programs and processes through which the state, the private sector, and the civil society interact. There is need to rethink the paradigms of development and redirect them towards citizen-oriented, participatory, and inclusive models of governance and development. To transform the role of government from that of a managerial authority to one of the leadership in a multi-centered setting, the culture of governance needs to change its orientation from bureaucratic to participatory, from authoritative to accountable, from monopolistic to competitive and innovative, from closed to open, from autocratic to democratic, and from exclusive to inclusive. Such a holistic approach requires cognizance of the interlinkages among the various players at the level of the state, the private sector, and the civil society. In short, it requires a new model of governance. Nowadays, any government cannot but think of how quickly and successfully they can transform into e-government. To speak non-technically, I am not a technocrat or I don't know about the e-government system as a technocrat, so I say e-government is about integration of information and communication technologies in governmental activities. The very purpose is better governance in terms of efficiency and transparency in governmental functionaries and quick and comfortable service delivery to the citizens. Thinking of one step ahead, this is also about creation of effective communication channels between government and citizens through which people can actively participate and contribute to the decision-making and law-making systems. Government of Bangladesh is aware of the impact and importance of e-government, however, struggling with many of the challenges that remain in this area of action. Besides, we know that she has other priorities and crises to attend. The question is how to plan and forward with the agenda of e-government within our limitations and crises. How e-government can support the government to deal with many other national priorities. As we know, introduction of e-government requires simultaneous attention to multidimensional courses of activities. From technological point of view, the challenge remains firstly on how to design the architect and technological infrastructure with diversity and harmony in national level. Next, how to make them accessible, affordable, and usable to the vast population of 140 million. Creation of a conducive legal environment is another precondition. How quickly and comprehensively we can bring necessary amendments to the existing laws and also enact new ones. In official procedures, we are still mostly on the colonial legacy. This is a major area where we need to put attention because e-government seeks changes in processes and procedures. what about the drivers of e-government? Are the public officials ready to accept and adopt new technologies in their daily activities? Most importantly, what is the status of targeted beneficiaries of e-government? What is the expectation about government services? How to design electronic services as per their needs and choices? How to make these services available at their comfortability? Are we ready to use electronic public services? So many questions, so many challenges. Addressing all of these problems at once not be possible nor required at all. However, we need a national roadmap. Already these two giant shows that activities abroad, and they try to narrate the position of Bangladesh globally and regionally as well. So we have to think, we have to find out some way out. And if we need to proceed on from this seminar, I believe that if there may be a small group that could be formed from here or from next round, from any discussion from NRB people. So you can find out if you want to make this a success, to introduce a change in government, to make a new dimension in 21st century government and e-governance in government. So finally, I thank everybody who participated here, and again to Dr. Momin and Dr. Imran. Of course, the moderator, he completed the session within the stipulated time. Dr. Kayakubad, thank you everybody. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. Now I would request you to ask one or two questions, then we will wrap up the session.
I just want to know from Dr. Kayakubad the present situation of e-governance in Bangladesh and the government policy.
I know a little bit of it. There has been an report for e-governance. There are 45 projects, I think, under SICT. There is ICT task force led by Prime Minister. There cannot be a more powerful person to lead a team. And we had a Ministry of Science and Information and Communication Technology. Not many countries have it. Okay? In Bangladesh, we have a ministry like that. Unfortunately, that ministry was not good enough to run SICT things. It was run by planning ministry. So, things did not really run well at all. And I am sure all the projects that are being done now, cannot be said to be successful. I do not think so. But let us hope that something still will happen, okay? We live with this hope, okay? That is what we have in Bangladesh.
Thank you, sir. I'm Wing Commander Tabang, retired now. I'm working for a prime bank as head of it. So my question is to the first speaker. As it appears from me, to me from his lecture that he's a man from strategic management. So both of us spoken about the governance and the government, and the last speaker spoken about the e-government. First of all, the term governance is a wide term, and it's really difficult, I understand, to finish everything in a very short time. That we have our judiciary separated, this one organ of the government, and we find that the executive, the other organ of the government, is set to bring changes, but we are left with the Parliament. If we look at the face of a member of the British Parliament and at the face of member of our Parliament, we find a big difference. So both of them have spoken about the education side. We understand education is the prime mover of everything. Now, do you really specifically suggest any change in terms of quality and education, or do you have to set any limit as to who should be qualified to come as the lawmaker? Because if I am here to make the law, I must have a basic education. If I do not understand what is vision, if I do not understand the direction that I have to go, if I don't really read the book, If I don't have the basic level of education, how do you really expect me to make the law for the nation? Is my question to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Before I answer your questions, I would like to explain what is meant by technology today. There is a misconception that technology only refers to machines and internet and this automobiles and so on. But technology has two components. One part refers to machines, automobiles, and these sort of inputs. The other part refers to knowledge-based, skill-based, experience-based, things that you do, processes. I give an example. In earlier days, if you would like to take a leave of absence, so you write a big, letter. এবং সেই লেটারের দরখাস্তের মধ্যে আমি এত দিনের ছুটি চাচ্ছি, এই বাবদে ছুটি চাচ্ছি, এটা আপনি লিখেন, your most obedient servant. But technology has changed. আমরা এখন করি কি, we create a little form. এই ফর্মের মধ্যে খালি টিক মার্ক দিই, কি কারণে লিভ, সিক লিভ, আমার পাওনা লিভ, আমার কি লিভ, এই যে টিক মার্ক দিলে যে ফর্মটা তৈরি করলাম, it is a technological innovation. একইভাবে যেমন আপনার ক্লাসে আমি মাস্টার, আমার ছাত্ররা কে কোন কোর্স দিচ্ছে, ওই কোর্সটা কোথায় হচ্ছে, কোন রুমে হবে, কোন টাইমে হবে, কোন দিন হবে, কোন কে টিচার, এই সবগুলো আমরা একটা schedule তৈরি করি. It is another form of technology, and that is more superior form of technology. Technology provides. So এটা আগের এক ভদ্রলোকের জন্য আমি সেটা বলতে চাচ্ছি যে there are two components of technology. Now another question was about bureaucracy. The bureaucracy we mean is a chain of hierarchical change of governance or decision making process. Such organization, there has to have a bureaucracy. There has to have some hierarchical change of command. Sometimes there are various forms of system developed depending on what type of organization it is. Government among mostly a pyramidal type of organization আমরা তৈরি করি. At times is needed, কারণ গভর্নমেন্টের সবগুলো accountability is too high. সেই জন্য আমরা এই pyramidal formটা পছন্দ করি গভর্নমেন্টে. In a research organization, it depends on metric type of organization setup. Now, going back to your issues, that you asked me whether we should provide a limit about the education or qualification for the members of parliament. I do not share these views. Look at today's technology is not only the outcome of best brains, it is the outcome of common people. Let's take Bill Gates. He has not completed his education, not a graduate even, but he has developed what he has done. All the technologies which are available within the society, সেইগুলোকে তিনি আপনার assimilate করে, he has given you a PC on your desktop, he has given a laptop on your, this is the way he used this technology. এবং করে এই আপনার মনে করেন সে অশিক্ষিত সেই দিক থেকে, আপনার ডিগ্রি যেহেতু নাই, but he is sucking the wealth of the nations because of his technological expert. Look at Indira Gandhi. She never attended any schools, but she was one of the best leaders of the world. Look at Andrew Jackson, the president, one of the most successful president of the United States, never went to any school. Now, education that we have to define. Is it a matter of degree? আমি জানি যারা সৌদি আরবের এখানে কিছু বন্ধু ছিলেন, সেই সৌদি আরবে আপনার একটা আইন হয়েছে, সরকারি আইন, যে কোনো লোক যদি তার ইনকাম 2000 রিয়ালের কম হয়, অথবা সে যদি গ্রাজুয়েট না হয়, he cannot bring his family to Saudi Arabia. That rule has created, a barrage of corruption. দুনিয়ার যত রকম করাপশন, অফিসাররা করাপ্ট হয়ে গেছে, সব এমবেসি করে কি, যেহেতু সেই লোকটার পয়সা টয়সা হয়েছে, তার ফ্যামিলি তো আনতে হবে। সো হোয়াট হি ডাজ, সেইখানে আপনার ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং প্ল্যান্ট হয়েছে, যে লোক কোনোদিন হাই স্কুলও পাস করে নাই, 8 গ্রেডও করে নাই, সেও দেখবেন বুয়েটের ডিগ্রি সে পেয়েছে, এটা দিয়ে সে নিয়ে আসে। You see, what you are doing in the process, you are creating and আমরা মানুষদের খুব বুদ্ধিমান, মানুষের নেসেসিটি আপনাকে বুদ্ধিমান করে তোলে, ওরা ওই ডিগ্রি একটা বানায় দেখা দেয়। সো আই পার্সোনালি বিলিভ এই কনসেপ্টটা আমাদের চেঞ্জ করতে হবে। উই হ্যাভ টু ট্রাস্ট অন দি হিউম্যান ইনজিনিয়ারিং। সাধারণ লোকেরা আমাদের দেশেও অনেক সাধারণ লোক শিক্ষা দীক্ষা মানে আপনার এডুকেশন ইউনিভার্সিটি কলেজে যায় নাই, বাট দে হ্যাভ ডান ট্রেমেন্ডাস গুড জবস। মেনি অফ আওয়ার প্যারেন্টস, হ্যাঁ আমাদের বহু বাপ মা তো শিক্ষা ছিল না, বাট দে হ্যাভ রিয়ার্ড আস, ভালোভাবে আমাদের গঠন করে দিয়েছে। কয়টা লোক আপনার ওইরকম শিক্ষিত ছিল কিন্তু তার ছেলে দেখবেন he has become pretty qualified. The values he has provided, and that value did not come that he went to school. এটা বহু দিক থেকে সমাজ থেকে আসে। এটা আমরা বলি সোসাইটিকে হোল ভিলেজ শুড বিল্ড আপ। এটা বাপ মা পরিবার প্রতিবেশী ধর্ম has a great role in the individual human life. এই সবগুলো আমাদের প্রতিভা। I do not share the একটা qualification থাকতে হবে। Of course I do share and I believe যে আমাদের দেশে এই এডুকেশনের জন্য সত্যিকারের এডুকেশনের we should spend more money. Particularly there have been many studies done over the years in many countries, primary school and secondary school. In Soviet Union, 64% growth is the contribution of the primary school education funding. In the USA, 45, even currently after this technology যুগে, it has exceeded any limit. In education তার আপনার growth rate অনেক দূর অগ্রসর করে নিয়ে যায়। আপনার সেই জন্য we should put more emphasis on primary and secondary education. আগে আমরা প্রাইমারি বলতাম, এখন যেহেতু মোর টেকনোলজিক্যালি অ্যাডভান্সড হয়ে গেছে। Now this is not because আমরা চাই, যেমন সৌদি আরব মনে করেন, আমি সে দেশে কাজ করেছি কয়েক বছর, they have 25% of their budget is allocated for education. Unfortunately সেই টাকাটা কিন্তু বেতন টেতনে চলে যায়, সো খুব একটা ভালো এডুকেশন হয় না। সেই বেতন টেতনে না গিয়ে ইনফ্যাক্ট কোয়ালিটি এডুকেশন দেওয়ার জন্য ইউ নিড গুড টিচার্স, ইউ নিড কমিটেড পিপল, এবং সেটার জন্য ইউ নিড ইনস্টিটিউশন, গুড ইনস্টিটিউশন। এই জন্য আমি বলি যে প্রিন্সিপাল হবেন, যিনি বড় চাকরি হবেন, টেস্ট করার জন্য দেয়ার শুড বি পাবলিক হিয়ারিং বিফোর অ্যাপয়েন্টিং হিম অর হার। যদি হয় ভালো লোক, তখন সে মনে করে সে প্রিন্সিপাল হবে, সেই জন্য খারাপ কাজ করবে না, কিংবা যখন সেক্রেটারি হবে কি অ্যাম্বাসেডর হবে, একইভাবে একই নিয়মে সে যখন দেখবে যে হি হ্যাজ টু ফেস পাবলিক হিয়ারিং, তাহলে সে সৎ হওয়ার জন্য সারা জীবন কাজ করবে। কারেন্টলি সৎ লোকের রিওয়ার্ড নাই, এর ফলে আপনার উল্টো পাল্টো লোক এইসব হয়। এই জন্য আমরা বিভিন্ন ধরনের লিমিট, দিস আর স্টপ কেপ্ট, দিস উইল নট ওয়ার্ক। উই হ্যাভ টু পুট মোর মানি অন দি প্রাইমারি এন্ড সেকেন্ডারি এডুকেশন, and we have to trust in our human ability and belief. Thank you very much.
ওকে, তাহলে আমরা র্যাপ আপ করতে চাই আর কি। তো দুজন স্পিকারকে আমি ধন্যবাদ জানাই, দুজন দুটো দিক, ই গভর্নেন্সের দুটো দিক তুলে ধরেছেন। একজন যথেষ্ট থিওরিটিক্যালি উইথ অল থিওরিস অ্যারাউন্ড, আর আরেকজন হি কেম ভেরি স্ট্রং উইথ সাম প্রপোজালস as to what we should do. এই ভিশাস সার্কেল থেকে বের হওয়ার জন্য আমাদের কী করতে হবে সেটা ওনারা বলেছেন। আমি দুজনকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই, এবং সঙ্গে scholarsbangladesh.com এবং আমাদের NRBs যারা এই ধরনের একটা কনফারেন্স আয়োজন করেছেন। তবে একই সাথে আমি খুবই হামলি মনে করিয়ে দিতে চাই, in year 2000 we had Take Bangla 2000. That was also a very good initiative. Somehow it died down possibly. We do not hear about it. Okay? Maybe বাংলাদেশিদের আমরা ধৈর্য খুব লম্বা সময় ধরে রাখতে পারি না। ফুটবলের প্রথম হাফে আমরা ভালো খেলি, তারপরে দৌড়াতে পারি না। Possibly in everywhere it is like that. Still I hope that this initiative will survive the ordeal of time, এবং বাংলাদেশের মতো একটা দেশ, অত্যন্ত রুগ্ন দেশ, মানে রোগী জানে অক্সিজেন ছাড়া বাঁচবে না, এরকম একটা অবস্থা। আমরা আশা করি আমাদের নন রেসিডেন্ট বাংলাদেশি যারা আছেন সত্যিকারের দেশপ্রেমের তাগিদে বাংলাদেশকে ইফেক্টিভভাবে সাহায্য করবেন আর কি। ইট ইজ নট অনলি কামিং ইন উইন্টার্স, ওকে, লেট ইট বি উইথ এ গুড ড্রিম ইন ফিউচার। বাংলাদেশ যদি ভালো না থাকে আপনারা বাইরেও ভালো থাকতে পারবেন না। সুতরাং আপনাদের নিজেদের তাগিদেই এই জিনিসটা করতে হবে। অ্যান্ড অল ইয়ার রিলেটিভস আর হিয়ার আফটার অল। তো আপনাদের সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই এই লম্বা সময় ধরে আমাদের এই সেশনটা কন্ট্রিবিউট করলেন। অনেকেই অনেক সুন্দর সুন্দর প্রশ্ন লিখেছেন, কিন্তু সময়ের তো একটা সীমাবদ্ধতা আছে। উই মাস্ট ক্লোজ এট 5 PM, সো আই হ্যান্ড ইট ওভার টু ইউ।